computer.
There we go. Now it says live. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first question is, these are all in reference to the 5th chapter, the Religious Freedom, a Basic Human Right. And the first question is, how do we achieve fairness for all?
Okay, we did a family home evening lesson on this not too long ago. And I found this really cool saying with this little idea, and I thought it was really interesting. Fairness for all does not mean everybody gets the same thing. And I think that's what the confusion is in fairness, because everybody feels like, well, if I don't have what you have, then it's not fair. So we did this lesson, and my kids are the same way. So we did this lesson where I said, okay, let's say that Becky, my youngest, got a cut. So to make it fair, we're going to give everybody a Band-Aid. And then my oldest was like, but I don't need a Band-Aid. And then I'm like, I know, but I'm just making it fair. So everybody gets the same thing, because that's fair, right? And she's like, well, I don't want a Band-Aid. She's like, that's not what I want. That's not what I need. And so it's like, exactly. So fair. I just thought that was like, yes, I found it on Pinterest. But I was like, yeah, that's perfect. But I think that we need to remember, and I think those that are fighting for fair need to remember that fair doesn't mean the same thing. It means we have what we need.
That is the most wonderful thing I think I've ever heard. I love it. I want to do that same family home evening lesson. That is amazing. I definitely agree that just because fairness doesn't always equate to everything being equal. And I think you've made a wonderful point. I think that's a great lesson to teach. I don't really know how we go about implementing that, though. I guess that's my only question on that, is how we can implement it.
I think that with religious freedom, which is what he focused on, if it's just like you guys said, it's different. We are going to have different rights than other people. So certain civil rights pertain to gays, to be able to do this or that. We as religious people, or people who are more conservative, have other kinds of freedoms. So I think when you look at the Constitution, you look at our natural rights, our God-given rights, they're going to be different for whichever religion we practice or whatever we stand for. That's how I understand it.
I think those are really good points, Diva. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone have anything else to add to that? Okay. So our next question is, how do we address third-party lawsuits? So those are...
I think I studied the wrong questions. I have like different questions written out and answers. I'm like, oh man. Just go with it, I guess.
and then I really would like to just take the next question with it already, just because it mentions what is the legal precedent for these third-party lawsuits. Does anybody have anything to say about any of that?
I have a question to go with the questions, because I'm really good at that. When it's speaking of the third-party lawsuits, is it talking like, I think there was Because when they were doing the cake, hold on, let me look and make sure.
I think
But they were
mean
basically
the one where like the states or like some of the ACLU had a couple was thrown in there a few times.
I think I'm thinking of earlier, but basically the business, whatever it was, somebody came to them, and it wasn't even the person that was. I think it was the woman who didn't give flowers, but somebody else besides the person who was hurt came to them and was like, "Yeah, we're gonna sue you." Does it make sense? And so I was wondering why that person came, because it was like an actual person from the government. So I have a lot of questions about this. I'm not sure I understand why somebody else has to come in if the person didn't have a problem. Maybe I'm not explaining myself very well. I will look up what I'm trying to say and get back to you.
Missy, you're right. You're right. The person who was not hurt would come in and say, well, I'm going to sue you because of this. And it's like a fair rights act that says, oh, well, you didn't treat that person fair, so I'm going to sue you, which to me is absolutely ridiculous. But
Yes.
yeah, so no, and it happened multiple times. That's not the only time it happened. So I was kind of just.
I found it. Okay, it's on page 97. And it was the lady who had the flower shop. But the state attorney general, Bob Ferguson, sued her for violations of the state's sexual orientation law. And I just don't understand why it's his business anyways. Why is it? Is it just because it's them trying to make a point? Because point was made, but it's starting to get my ire up. I really think it's wrong that they are trying to force everybody to do something that they believe. I really, really liked how Brother Eric was showing us that we could we could be doing the same things and believing the same things and acting the same way, but we're not. But I'm wondering if we need to, with the way that they're acting. My sister-in-law put it very well. She said that the gay community was really, really oppressed and they have been for many, many years. And it's just recently, kind of like with the blacks, that we have been like, oh yeah, we need to recognize them and probably give them more religious freedom to practice their thinking. And she said that it's kind of like we went across the line. You know how we, instead of treating them really unfairly on this side, we decided to put them all the way over on this side and like give them over compensation, I guess you could say. And I feel like we need to push back and make it so that it's a balance once again, because we've figured that balance out with the blacks. I still feel like we still need to keep that line better, but I feel like it's been smoothed out a lot better. I don't know if any of this makes sense. But those are kind of some of the thoughts that I've had as I've been trying to figure out the third party issue in all of this.
I think the third party issues, I think it kind of ties in with the Religious Freedom Act that was also referenced for the state of Indiana. I think having some kind of legislation in place would help with the third party lawsuits, but I mean, obviously it's not going over well because that wasn't voted through in the state of Indiana. So yeah, I don't know. That chapter was really, eye-opening and slightly enraging a little bit, because it just blew my mind that these people were being sued, and every single one of them had to end up closing their business. And that was just so sad to me. And so I just don't understand how the law could treat our fellow citizens that way. So, does anybody else have anything they would like to add?
I think the law is so vague, and that's part of the biggest problem. It's like this broad range that it can be interpreted in so many different ways. And I'm with you, Stacy. I was mad. I was like, really, guys, just go to another flower shop and get flowers there. There are plenty of people that would love to do it. Why do you have to like completely destroy someone's life? And that was what was bothering me. Is
That's what I was thinking too.
What else were you thinking, Diva?
That there's so many companies, so many photographers and bakers. Why do they have to? I think they feel offended, and so they're picking on these people because they can easily go like next door and to the next business owner and get what they want. But they have to, I don't know. They really want to change the law, and that's what they want. That's why they're making a big deal out of it, because they can just give these people the freedom of religion that they deserve and just move on. There's so many photographers everywhere. I mean, I don't know. That's the same thing I was thinking. It's just frustrating.
Well, I think the one that upset me the most was the flower shop, because she was friends with that couple, and like they made it sound like they were okay with it, and it was that third party that came in, that she said they were still friends, they understood, whatever. And then it was that third party that came in and then completely took her down. Like that was not okay.
So, is the real issue tolerance? Is the real issue like having gone away from a lot of religion in our country, and our tolerance level has been dissipated? I guess I don't know if that's the real reason or not.
Yeah,
Was it in this class, or was it in a different class that as we step away from religious freedom, I think it was this class, then we become an intolerant people. And that's just the way it is. Religion, whether people want to believe it or not, is the basis of our foundation of our entire country. That's what we were built on. And that is the way the Constitution works. And because of religion, that is what gives us the freedoms, everybody the freedoms, not just one person or one section or whatever. That religious freedom is actually the freedom for everybody. And as we step away and we try to say, well, you can only have this much freedom with your religion, and you can only have this much freedom, and you have to, or whatever, as we become more nitpicky about that, we lose the tolerance, we lose the whole basis of our foundation, and we're just, it's like you can't see, there's like this veil that comes over your eyes, and you become so much less tolerant because you don't have, what I want to say, the Spirit with you to help you become tolerant or to be just kind in the basic, simple ways. I don't know.
I agree 100% with that. That is exactly what my train of thought is. And maybe that's because of all the material that we've read, but I feel like as we are more tolerant and we start showing that around to people, like via Facebook or whatever, in our communities, and we ask people to be more tolerant, but not only that, but to fight. It's a hard balance to fight and be tolerant at the same time. And I think that's the confusion that I have currently, is trying to figure out what is that balance?
I think what's hard too sometimes is that my mind keeps on going back to like separate but equal. We're never going to be equal. I think that's the issue is I don't care about how people want to act as long as they're being kind. Like they can believe whatever they want. They can choose to live their lives however they want. But I'm always going to treat them nicely. I was raised that way. That's how I was taught to treat people, with love and kindness. And I would just hope that somebody would treat me with that same equal respect, you know. And that's the thing is if you don't agree with somebody, a lot of times that other side is you're wrong and we're going to treat you poorly for it. And that's the thing is it's difficult because we're on the side of let's make change, but let's do it in a nice, friendly way. And they don't accept that. And that's what's hard is anytime we make a stand, it's never going to be looked at the same because they refuse to look at us as equal to them. So that's where I see the problem is we're always trying to be nice and kind. But I think a lot of times any stand we make at all is going to be considered a rude one or a bigoted one or, you know, because that's their mindset.
It's interesting that we've become so intolerant in the fight for tolerance.
Exactly. I've thought the same thing. That it seems like the side that is always preaching tolerance almost seems more intolerant, I guess. It just seems really ironic, I guess, to me, about that. Does anybody else have anything to say about all of that? All right, this has been a good discussion. I'm liking it. Okay, our next question is what threat should the LDS Church be concerned about? And examples that were given were adoption, religious schools, etc. So what threat should the LDS Church be concerned about? Anybody want to tackle that one? There's a lot of threats that we should be concerned about. It's kind of a very broad question right now. I don't know. I think this class has made me think about it more, like definitely like more aware of things, I guess you could say. Like my threat that I chose was pornography. So I'm like, pornography is the threat. But like I liked yours, Stacy, where eating disorders is a threat that we need to be aware about. And I actually, I am in the primary in my ward, but I love young women. So I'm just like, I push my way in there sometimes trying to get in with the young women, trying to be friends with them and stuff. And like, I've seen some of what you're talking about. And like, I've realized myself like, oh my gosh, this is a situation that's happening here right now in my ward. Like I need to be aware of. So I think that, I think the biggest thing that we, like the church should be fighting for is just awareness of people and aware of those threats. We need to be fighting to be aware of, you know, and how to be prepared for those different threats. So I don't know if that answers the question, but there's just a lot of things going on in this world that are dangers to everyone. So I don't know, just being more aware of everything that's going on.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think along with that, one of the things that really kind of caught my mind that I was kind of wondering about is when are we going to be attacked as a church? Because we're very blatant about what we do believe and what we don't believe. It's very much out there. And I know that there have been attacks. There have been church buildings set on fire, especially when the Proposition 8 in California came along. There's a lot of retaliation against the LDS community there because of that. But what is interesting to me is we haven't had a huge lawsuit brought out against us. And because we won't marry same-sex couples in our temples, we won't marry same-sex couples in our churches, and there will never be a day that we do that. And I don't want to say I'm waiting for that day, but I find it interesting that we haven't reached that point. And I think that's kind of a protection that we have from God. But in a way, I kind of am waiting for that point when we're going to see that.
I've heard, and this could be like total rumors, so don't even take like 100% validity into this. But when my husband and I were about to get married, we were talking to one of our bishops, and he's like, I honestly won't be surprised when we have to have people get married civilly before they go to the temple. And he was talking about how soon that day would come where we would have to be married outside of the temple just so that the sealing itself would be done in the temple, and it wouldn't be the marriage. Like, it for us it would be the marriage, but like legally we would have to get married somewhere else, because then the church could say, well, the marriage isn't happening here, we're performing a ordinance, that's not, that other people don't need to be involved in if they're not members of the church, specifically for that reason, so that we don't get in trouble with the law. So I bet that I bet somebody could try to sue us, like in those stories, but I think that there's ways that we could loophole out of it. But I definitely agree with you. I think that the church could easily be a target of many things. But I also feel like our background and like what we've done for the world would kind of help us out a little bit. I mean, if any disaster, any issue, we're always like the first people there with aid and with help. And I think that and people know that too. So I think that it, kind of balanced out, but you're definitely right. I think that it's.
I wonder, I was just thinking about sorry, Diva, about how much we've done, because we had an adoption agency, or the church did, and they stopped having that help the children, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe now. And I posted a little bit about it, but I was so confused why they would stop such a good thing, until I realized that it's because of the same gender, that we can't give children to same gender parents. Like, that goes against everything we believe. It's not that they're bad people, it's just we feel that the best environment for a child is within a marriage between a man and a woman. Anyway, so that was what I was thinking as I was listening to you, Cassie. I'm not sure. I'm pretty worried that we won't be able to even speak up about our beliefs pretty soon without getting hammered really hard.
I was just going to say that I think that one of the reasons why we haven't been in a major lawsuit or attacked is because we're not the only ones. The Catholic Church is very powerful, and they are one of the churches that stand by us in that issue. They won't marry same-sex couples in their church. And I think they've been attacked more, I think, because they're just larger than us, than we have. But I really liked that clip by Elder Perry, where he says that we need to come together with people of other faiths so that we can be stronger, because they don't have the same beliefs as us, but the core foundations of their beliefs they're a little bit similar, and when we're together we can be stronger. And I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't been attacked. And going back to Misty's question about tolerance is that I liked what was it Ryan Anderson, what he said about we're not these companies, these bakeries, they're not saying that they don't want to sell or bake or they don't want to sell like flowers or just use their company for gays and lesbians, but they're against like the celebration, like how do I explain it? Like when people are getting married. So that's what they have a standpoint, and that's their religious right to do that. But it's not that they don't want to serve because they're gay. They don't want to like celebrate this union, I guess. So I really like the way he explained that.
Well, and to some people, it's not just about the celebration. It's about, they feel like this is what they do. They become a part of it. So they're not just saying, oh, good job, from a distance. They're actually engaging and participating in this ritual that they don't feel is right. So it's not just that they're standing by and they sold flowers to a couple. They feel like they're truly becoming a part of it. And I think that's what their big deal is.
And helping in the process. It's like, yes, I'm, giving you that extra push. Of course, I'll make beautiful flowers to help your wedding move along. Or I definitely agree. I think that it's the action of things. Like, I'm not going to run into somebody who's gay, or I have friends from high school that were of that, in that spectrum now, I guess. And it was never an issue. It's like, you have your ways of living and I have mine, just like you like to drink and I don't like to drink, but I'm not gonna, try and stop you if that's what you want. But I would never go hand somebody a beer and be like, drink it. Or like, let me go buy that pack of cigarettes for you that I totally support you in using. I wouldn't do that because I don't believe that. Would I go pick somebody up if they were too drunk to drive? Yes, because that's something that I believe in. I believe that you shouldn't be engaging in those things and you shouldn't be out driving. But I would never assist anybody in doing those things that I don't believe in. And so I think that that's where like people don't understand, and that's why they get so heated. And we talked about it last week, how that 1% is like the squeakiest wheel that ever lived. And it's become a popular thing to be the squeaky wheel. It's become like a social media fad. It's become, I live up in North Dakota, and I don't know if you guys heard anything about the pipeline that was going in up here. But there was a pipeline going in, and because rioting and protesting has become such a big, huge fad, one of the native reserves got taken over by protesters trying to protest the pipeline being put in. And I think that's why they're having so much success, is because right now in our society, it's popular. It's a popular thing to go out and protest and to fight something and to believe in something. But most of those people don't know what they're fighting for. It's just fun to fight and cool to fight and protest. And so I think that's where our issues lies. We're a little bit quieter. We're not trying to force our beliefs down other people's throats. We just want the peace to be able to live how we want to live and not be messed with. And they want to make sure that everybody is force-fed what they believe. And that's the cool thing to do. So I don't know. I see that that's where they get a lot of their success, is they're the trendy thing to do right now, is to cause problems. You've all made some really, really good points. The only thing I have to add to that, it's of political nature. And it just has to do with like intolerance. And it actually just happened to my family on Monday. And so for those of you who don't know, we're stationed at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam in Hawaii. And so the elementary school that my children go to, it only services children who live on base. So it's all military children who attend this school. And the president was going to be passing through here again on his way back to Washington. And one of my daughter's teachers was not happy about this because it would affect her commute and blah, 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 blah. And somehow made a rude comment about President Trump. And we've always taught our children, even if we don't agree with the president, we still support him. We've been telling them that since day one, because there were things we didn't support with our previous president and even the president before him. So, we've just always taught them, he's in charge of dad, so we have to respect him. He's an authority figure, whether we like it or not. And so she made a not so nice comment about him, and my daughter, bless her heart, decided to stand up for once, which she's normally very quiet, and said, my parents said da 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 da, and then she looked at my daughter and she said, well, you need to tell your parents that he's trying to start World War III. And she said this to a room full of military children who understand the implications of war. Like, my husband's been gone for half of my daughter's life. Like, he, and so it was just, I just wanted to, like, when she told me this, I just wanted to go to school and shake this woman and be like, I understand your political side. Like, I get it. You don't like the man, okay? Most of America doesn't. I get it, okay? But, like, that's, I think, part of the intolerance that we have, because she still has to just spew this, even though, the man was elected a year ago and everybody still talks about how he's not their president and all this other crap. And it just gets on my nerves because I'm just like, get over it. Like, I don't know, sorry, I didn't mean for this to become like a huge political rant, but like this, it just really upset me. And like, it just really made me, and it has to do with what we're talking about, because I'm like, she has her right to have her opinion. But see, I guess that's where we can kind of tie it in, because like, where do you draw the line though? Because I feel she shouldn't be saying this to children in a school, but yet she's allowed to have that opinion. Like, I don't know. I guess I can kind of.
And you have the right to go to the school and let her know how you feel, Stacy.
Right. And we did. We spoke with the principal about it, but like, I guess that's where I feel like, where do you draw that line? How do we set that precedent of what's okay, what's not okay? Where do we, what's that line between? And that was one of the other questions that we're not even talking about, Diva, that I think you're referencing to, is how do you draw the line between freedom of speech and freedom? You know what I mean? Like, I guess that experience really made me be like, I don't know what to do, because I don't know where to draw the line. So.
Well, that's what I think. Like, they swing it. It's okay for them to say these crazy things in a public setting, like a school education setting, but we're not allowed to say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. So, like, that's where I say, like, it's slanted, and like that's what we're fighting against, is like these hypocritical, one-way, super biased rules. So it's like, how do you, respectfully go in? And I'm so glad you said you went to the principal, because that makes me angry. Like, how could you tell a bunch of military kids that? Because I've got family in the military too, and I'd be like, are you kidding me? You can't say that kind of stuff in school. Like, you're supposed to be their teacher, But so I definitely agree with you that it's so hard when the line for us is always changing, but the line for them is always like so distinct. Like, I'm allowed to do whatever, but you're definitely not allowed to do the same things. So that's so hard.
Okay. Well, Sorry, now that my little rant is over. I just had to get it out. I hadn't been able to tell anybody about it. Okay. And I think
Thank you
we...
for saying something. I want you to know I really appreciate that, because it's very concerning what is going on in our schools.
Mm.
It's very concerning because the teacher has such influence, and they can sway the children one way or the other, and they're the ones who have such great influence besides the parents. And I really honestly believe it is up to us as parents to make sure that you correct that thinking. You say, okay, this is what you learned at school, but this is truth.
Mm.
And making sure that we teach our children truth, and tolerance for others.
Right.
And I agree, Stacy, like, and Misty, like, part of it is these, in such a public spot, you cannot go against somebody else for their beliefs. You can't do that. My daughter had to stand up the other day, not for something like that, Stacy, but for something a little different that I thought was just incredible. I was sitting right there at a teacher conference, and the teachers had just, it was a little thing to her, but Sunday, and if you will go to this race, I'll give you extra credit. And my daughter was like, no, we can't, we're not going to do that. And she goes, but you need it, because my daughter doesn't turn in all of her assignments, so she does need the extra credit. But she's like, well, we don't do things like that on Sunday. And the teacher kept attacking her for it, and was just really going on about, like, well, can't you make an exception this one time? And she's like, well, no, I don't make exceptions for church. And I was so proud of her, because I was sitting right there and I could have jumped in, but she was like, no, we don't do that. And the teacher was like, well, why don't then you just sign up and not show up? And she's like, no. And I just, like, at that point was just like, are you just told my daughter to lie? Like, how? Because, and then you kept attacking. My husband finally stepped up, and she goes, he's like, well, what does that teach our daughter? And then she shut up about it after that. But I think it's interesting that you could, like, children can go in and say their beliefs, and the teachers, instead of being respectful of those beliefs and those differences and those thoughts, and a very valid point from you, Stacy, they just feel like they need to state their opinions to children in those kinds of ways. Thank you for sharing that. Like, it's frustrating to me. This whole lesson has been so frustrating to me. I'm like, I just want to shake people and be like, you guys are being dorks.
I remember when President Obama was up for election the second time, and we were doing a mock voting in our high school classes. And I think I was probably maybe a freshman or sophomore. I don't know, pretty young. But I just remember feeling so pressured by the teacher that it was like, if I didn't vote for Obama, I was going to fail this assignment or whatever. And I was so tempted, because I was like, I know I'm probably not supposed to vote for this guy. I mean, I was pretty out of politics. I did not care one bit. And I don't think most kids at that age do, because, we can't really do a whole lot about it at that age. But all of my classmates were like, oh, you have to put down Obama, or else we'll be in trouble or whatever. And I was just so shocked, because this teacher was pushing so hard and pushing Obama's policies, and and I was just thinking back, that is so wrong, so wrong. You can't yes, all for having a mock voting situation. That's cool. That's educational. But pushing policies, pushing opinions, again, so one-sided, because if somebody would have been pushing for, the Republican Party, it would have been, attacked and criticized. And it's everything we see in the news. If it would have been anything having to do with Republican, it would have been a fiasco, or I don't know. So I think that schooling is definitely another one of those things where it's, like you both were saying, it's so important to be very upfront with our kids about like how things really should be. I'm grateful. I live in like this teeny tiny town where everyone is still pretty much very conservative. And so I'm like, my kids might have a chance of like a normal school setting, you know, but like in Idaho, we lived in like the most liberal town in Idaho. And so it was different. It was very different.
Sorry, out of curiosity, where is that town? I'm in Idaho right now.
Get this. Killdeer, North Dakota. Come on up. Killdeer.
Oh, awesome. I'm in a pretty small town too, so I'm like pretty satisfied.
Come on up. I welcome all, man. All three of us live in here. No.
I feel great.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, Brenda, I'm so super proud of your daughter. That's amazing. And I think sometimes educators can forget the influence they have. It's like they know they have that influence, but I think they sometimes forget just how broad of a scope that influence can be, and just how much that really can affect their students. Well, does anybody have anything else they would want to share? I think we've just about covered everything. So, are we ready for our summary then? Okay. Well, Brenda, whenever you're ready.
Right. All right. This session we talked about, we started out by talking about how to achieve fairness for all. And we decided that fair doesn't mean that we all get the same thing. Fairness doesn't equate to everybody being equal. We talked about having a Band-Aid lesson where if just one person needs a Band-Aid, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody else needs a Band-Aid. We're going to have different rights than other people, and different people have different kinds of freedom. And we have the natural and God-given rights, but those rights mean different things to different people. Part of the problem is that we don't want to support things that we don't believe in. We would never hand a drink to someone because we don't believe in that. It is the same as participating in our belief. Protesting, we have decided, has become a popular thing, and that most people don't know what they are actually fighting for, but that it has become fun and popular to be in the fight. We talked about how others are forcing, in general, to conform to their belief. The gay community has been oppressed for so many years, and we recently have realized this and the need to recognize them, and have given them more freedom, but we feel that we have crossed the line. We are almost making up in excess for past sins. It is now tipping the scales to create unfairness for everyone else. We feel that it ties in with the Religious Freedom Act, and that having some kind of legislation in place would help with the third-party lawsuits. The law is so broad that it leaves so much interpretation open to the law. It is frustrating that instead of going to the next business and getting service somewhere else, they're destroying the livelihood of people. We question if the real issue is tolerance. As we have gone away from religion, we lose the ability to become tolerant. As we try to force religion away from the country, we lose the kindness that comes with the belief in religion. It is a difficult balance to fight and to be tolerant. We are never going to be equal, and we don't want to be. We feel that we should always treat others nicely and kindly, and that we would hope for the same and equal respect. The other side should not be seen as wrong, but as different and as having different beliefs. We have become so intolerant in the fight for tolerance. As we have learned so much we have become more aware of these. The biggest things that we need to fight for is the awareness of people, the awareness of these threats. One of the wonders is when the church will see a greater backlash for things such as not marrying same-sex couples, and many other things such as seeing the that we have seen, such as the LDS adoption agency being closed for the same reasons. However, we feel that our background and what we have done for the world should hopefully help our cause, not to mention that we have God on our side. Perhaps one of the reasons that we haven't been attacked is because we are not the only ones fighting for this cause. An example of this would be the Catholic Church. And they will not marry the same-sex couples as well, and we need to come together with people of other faiths so that we can be stronger as a whole. We also spoke of political intolerance, and we believe that, even when we don't agree as members of the church, it is our duty to support our leaders, and that we often need to respect those in authority. Part of the intolerance that we see is that many feel that they must spew anger in a cause that they have lost. It is difficult for some to stand back and support what you don't feel is correct. An example of this is the support of a president of our country or a law that has been put in place that we personally voted against. We believe as members of the church that we must follow these laws and support these. I lost my in authority. One of the things that we are seeing is the pressure of public. For instance, where our children are fighting this war for themselves and being attacked. It is sad that we see that even our young children have to fight, and we wonder how long and how much they will have to fight for in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Brenda. All right.
Eva, do you want to stop us?